Hi, I'm Barbara Gaines. Welcome to the Barbara Gaines Show. This is Bill Scheft, writer and drummer, and of course, Dave Letterman.
Hi, nice to see you. Thanks for having me, Barbara. By the way, I'm very excited.
Yes, this is very exciting. We have a special guest. I even have a little blue card intro.
Good, good.
Our special guest today has his own YouTube channel with almost 1.5 million subscribers.
Whoa! How many do you have?
800. 800,000.
Wow.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Uh-huh.
He is a renowned music historian and a master storyteller. Please welcome Professor of Rock, Adam Reeder.
Hi, Adam. How about that?
Yeah.
Adam, thank you very much. Do you mind if I say a few things?
No, please go.
I'm very happy to see you. Thank you very much for your time. This may be the busiest man on YouTube.
Oh.
Adam, how many new offerings do you put up a week?
Oh, I Monday through Saturday. I take Sundays off. So
This man works 6 days a week. How often do you work?
Twice a month.
Adam, thank you again. I'll just try to keep this to a minimum, but I see you virtually every night in my own home, and I know quite a lot about you. Do you mind if I tell things that I know about you?
Go ahead.
Your favorite band is Van Halen?
Yeah, well, they're my favorite hard rock band.
Give us chronologically, you dip back into the 60s and up into the early 2000s. Is that about right?
Yeah, yep.
I know Casey Kasem is somebody that's in your head all the time when you're doing this. He was an influence on what you do now?
Yeah, when I grew up in a small town in Idaho.
What was the town?
It was Blackfoot, Idaho, the potato capital of the world.
Yeah, potatoes.
Come on, everybody. Let's
everybody
go.
at
home. Yeah.
There wasn't a lot to do, so I listened to Casey Kasem religiously. I wrote down the top 40 every week and memorized that in my head. And then MTV became my window to the world, and so that's why. And then my dad was a huge influence, of course. He would share. He was a big 50s, 60s guy, and Bob Dylan and CCR and the Beatles, and that's how I grew up on all that.
Tell me a little bit more about that relationship. What did your dad do for a living?
My dad he's a painting contractor.
Oh, painting contractor.
Yes, painting contractor. And but by the way, we were a Letterman household. He loved your show.
Sure, yay.
I grew up on it. And here's the kicker. My dad looked exactly like Jay Leno. No kidding. People would stop.
I can kind of see a resemblance in especially your lower face, jaw area.
A little Leno-ish?
Yeah, but I think it's a good version of what you got there.
But he looked like Jay Leno. People would stop him and ask him for his autograph sometimes because they thought it was Leno. And he was a Letterman guy, and so we grew up. I grew up. I mean, I remember watching Billy Joel as your first guest in '93 and end of August, your first show.
Wow,
on CBS, and I was so excited because Billy Joel's my number one favorite.
Really?
Is that right?
Let me ask you a question. I put this question to our friend Paul Schaefer. Who's a bigger artist, music artist star, Billy Joel or Elton John? Yeah, who's the bigger of the two?
Well, I think the critics always loved Elton, but I was always Billy Joel guy. I think Billy Joel, I love them both, but I think Billy Joel, next to only Paul McCartney, is the greatest melodist ever. I mean, Billy Joel could write a melody like nobody.
Yeah.
To me, he's the greatest at writing just a hit song.
And by the way, Paul McCartney says Billy Joel, the greatest rock vocalist.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, the most versatile. Yeah.
Well, my dream interview is Billy Joel, and I was thinking maybe you could pull some strings there, Dave. I'm just kidding.
I'll do what I can. Let me move a few things around.
Yeah.
The other thing, Adam, when I watch your show, there's so much information and so much research. Do you do all the research?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, these are things that I've already read and I have in my head, but of course, got to go back and make sure that they're accurate. So I do have some people on the team that help with that. But, when I do an interview, I do normally 10 to 15 hours of research to make sure that I've got it all straight.
Wow.
And who writes what we see you present, or is that all in your head?
Well, that's a combination of I have some people that help me with that, but I write everything. I whatever they send, I write and take all the ideas and put them together because I want it to be in my words. I want it to be my feelings, that kind of thing. I plan all the shows, I plan all the top tens, all that kind of stuff, and yeah.
Well, and what led you, Adam, to YouTube for this outlet, this presentation?
Actually, what happened is the pandemic hit. We were making documentaries. We were going to be working with, various organizations out there like Sony and Amazon that we were talking to. The pandemic hit. Our investors said we got killed in the market. We got to pull out. So we put up on YouTube, and overnight people started sharing our stuff, and it just word of mouth, and it was just amazing how it came together. And all of a sudden, we had viewers.
Well, it speaks to the universality of music, and especially rock and roll music. But again, explain to me, would you, are you limited to those 3 or 4 decades? Is rock and roll, excuse the expression, withering? Any kid with any talent in their bedroom and the right digital equipment can have a billion streams of their music. So getting people together for a band that's going away. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that music in the new age is almost like a background thing. But my kids, I've tried to raise them right. I've got 4 kids, 2 that are out of the house, but 2 boys that are in the house. I've got a son that's autistic that's 14 and a son that's 17. My son that's 17 is playing the guitar. He's learning the guitar, and he wants to be great. And I said, well, the guys I've interviewed, like Neil Sean from Journey, the guitarist of Journey, he practiced 8 to 10 hours a day since he was a little kid. So that's what it takes to be great. And I think that there's so many different distractions, that happen with kids that they're not picking up the instrument, they're not learning as much. But I still have faith in the process. I mean, you've got great YouTubers out there like Rick Beato that is teaching guitar and interviewing people, and that's what I'm trying to do. Trying to keep the music alive so that I mean, it's like Dave Grohl said, right? You just got to get into a garage and suck for months, and then all of a sudden you're Nirvana. And I believe that that's still alive. I have faith in that music will always, the cream will always rise to the top. So we need another moment like Nirvana. I think there's the greatest opportunity in the history of music right now. I think anybody can go in, can plug in a guitar, play, have fans, that kind of thing, and create music. And I think it's incredible. Though I worry about AI and the things coming in that could try to replace it. But I think people are getting tired of that. I think people want real. They want sincerity. They want passion. And I think that rock and roll has always been about those things.
I've been following the threat to your YouTube channel.
Right.
Can you explain to me the threat? And then, do we have a threat to this channel other than no one watching? Is the only threat
that's
we
the
have?
big
We
threat.
wish. We wish.
But it has to do with music rights. Is that correct, Adam?
Yeah, a lot of people are facing this. It's what I do and what most of us do is fair use. We're talking about the part of the song that we're talking about. We play that part of the song.
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when we were on a TV show, we got to use, I think, occasionally what was referred to as like a needle drop, where you get like 3 to 5 seconds of a song. Is that the same as fair use?
Yeah. I mean, that's all we use is 5 to 6 seconds, though you can use more than that to explain your point. But you're getting copyright claims. You're getting claims from labels, right? For the master. You get claims from people who don't even own the master.
Right.
It's frustrating because you would think the labels would embrace what myself and what other YouTubers are doing, because we're trying to keep the music alive. We're trying to educate. We're trying to continue, classic rock, classic pop, and these interviews and capture this history. And, sometimes labels will reach out to me and say, hey, will you do the 40th anniversary of the B-52s, do this interview and push this album, and then put a link at the bottom? And I'll do that and I'll get a claim. And I'm like, I'm helping you guys out. Why am I getting a claim?
That makes no sense.
So is the basis of the claim that somehow somebody is not getting paid? Is that what it is?
I think they just had, with AI and with everything going on, they just go out and they go out and they see, oh, they're playing the melody of this song, they match it up and they claim it. And I don't think the right hand is talking to the left hand.
When you play music and if you're not getting any money for it, can you then is it okay?
No, they'll come after you no matter what. There's a guy that they came after for playing I think Beethoven's Fifth, and that's part of the public domain, and they're coming after him. It's craziness. It's just the Wild West. I wanted to ask you this, Dave. I know it's you guys' show, but
Boy, is it.
but I loved when you had Future Islands on.
Oh, wow.
I watched that. I'm not kidding you. I watched that clip at least twice a month. The passion of that Samuel guy, and I love your reaction to it, Dave.
Oh man,
I'll take all of that you got.
Yeah.
That was wonderful.
It was tremendous, and I've heard that comment endless number of times, and I keep thinking, really, I don't really remember that other than there they are, and wow, that was cool. So
I remember watching that and watching the guy and thinking, this is like if Marlon Brando was a front man.
Yeah.
It was the same.
Yeah.
And then we had him back at the end.
Yeah.
We had him back right at
I
the end
saw
of the run.
the comment that said, that's like if the gym teacher got up and did this at a talent show and you're like, oh my gosh, where did that come from? You know? But I love your passion for music. I've always loved that, Dave. REM, you know, when they were on in 1983, you were always pushing Warren Zevon. You were always pushing these artists that, you know, were a little bit outside of the norm, outside of radio friendly. And I've always appreciated that about you. So I just wanted to say that because that's the kind of passion that we need out there. His passion and your reaction to it was tremendous.
Well, the kind of music and the endless stream of music that we had was because of the people that produced it for us, Sheila Rogers and Paul Schaefer, and I just benefited from that endlessly. And to this day, since I got fired, I think my appreciation for music has only grown. And that's one of the reasons I enjoy your program so much. And as you point out, music takes care of quite a lot of things. Maybe not permanently, but certainly temporarily they can change things for you.
You remember, just this is my curiosity, what your first album you bought was?
The first records that I bought with my own money, I bought Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, Billy Joel, An Innocent Man, and Michael Jackson, Thriller were the first three that I bought myself.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
So I started out in my house, it was classical music. And then when my older sister listened to music, it was like the Kingston Trio.
Sure.
And Peter, Paul, and Mary, and the Hi-Lows, and stuff like that. Then I heard Elvis, and oh my God, I heard Heartbreak Hotel, and I felt like I was camping. I was in a tent. I had my portable radio on, and I felt like the tent was haunted. I just thought, oh my God, what if I end up in Heartbreak Hotel? and by the way, I have.
Yeah. They've sponsored this show.
That's right.
Mention Dave, get 14% off.
And then it became all about the Beach Boys. Oh my God, the Beach Boys. And that was transcendent for me. I know you love Brian Wilson.
Yeah, that was my dream interview. Before I started doing this, I wrote down a list of 15 people that I wanted to get before I leave this world, and Brian Wilson was at the very top.
Oh, they gave you your name, right?
Yeah, Beach Boys gave me my name, Professor of Rock, yeah.
Wow.
Nice credit.
Hey,
well,
that should be on the business card.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you your business, but that should be on the business card.
Hey, music junkies. And then from then, as I was a kid, it went from the Beach Boys to the Beatles. And these are still, it's interesting, Elvis not so much. I love Elvis in Las Vegas, but the Beach Boys still a fact of my life, and the Beatles still a fact of my life.
Yeah.
And I think that sequence is applicable to a huge generation. Bill, is that about what you did?
Yeah, I went in the other order. I went Beatles first, and then Beach Boys, because it was, I was one of those people that saw them on the Sullivan Show, and your life is never the same.
It's interesting. I've done like 890 something interviews. I don't know, I'm getting close to 900. And I asked the same opening and closing question. And the opening question I always ask is, what was the moment that opened the door to your mind and made you want to pursue music? Like the moment that you knew that that's all you could do. And I'll tell you what, like 85% give that answer. The Beatles on Ed Sullivan. And you'd think that it would be a boring story. Everybody's got a completely different story about their reaction, and how it affected them. And it's just really cool. I mean, that's a moment that just historical. There's just no question. Well, interesting story about the Beatles is my dad was a little kid watching the TV, and that's how they got him into music. And of course, that's why I got into music, because my dad opened me up to that with the Beatles. That's the first music I ever remember hearing. But I get a call about 2 years ago on my phone, and it's Ringo's manager. And he says, "Hey, this is Ringo Starr's touring manager. He's coming to play in your state, the Ringo All-Star Band, and he's a fan of the show. He'd like you to be his personal guest and come watch." And I thought it was a friend playing a joke on me. I could not believe it. So I go to the theater, and Ringo lets me play his drums. He gave me these drumsticks.
Wow. Wow.
And I walk up to meet Ringo. Ringo's like, "Professor of Rock?" And I'm like, "Okay,
Wow.
I'm done." I
Oh
don't
my
even do another
God.
interview.
Yeah, you
I've
are.
met a Beatle.
Yeah,
That's-
you
I've
are.
met a
That's pretty
Beatle.
good. And then also I love the stuff with Motown. Barry Gordy and that. Some of that
Love
stuff
Motown.
is I don't know. It's so good. It's so haunting. It's just delightful. And it was just a handful of people in this small house that I think I've seen pictures of in Detroit.
That's the genre that we're losing. A lot of kids don't know about Motown, and so I've been fortunate to be able to interview almost every artist from Motown in the '60s into the '70s, the Temptations, and Lamont Dozier was one of my
Oh,
favorite
man.
interviews I ever did,
Yeah.
because I got to sit there for 4 hours and ask Lamont about all the Four Tops and the Supremes and Martha and the Vandellas, and he was just now he's passed, he's gone. But I have all of these stories of every song that he wrote. I mean, he and Holland Dozier Holland, the Beatles were shaking in their boots, because that was the team that could put out a #1 hit at will.
Well, I'm sorry, Bill. Talk to Paul about Motown and earlier, and he's a huge fan, huge influence up in Canada, listening to all of this. And there's also a fantastic documentary that I've seen about Stax Records in Memphis. And oh my God, what those guys were doing there, just amazing stuff.
Well, and they were doing it because they didn't have all the technology like we have. Like, I was talking to Lamont Dozier. He's telling me that he used snow chains. So you'll like this story, Dave. He told me a story about Bob Dylan coming down, to Hitsville, USA. And Bob comes walking in Hitsville, USA. And if you've ever been to Hitsville, it's a room. It's a little teeny house, And Bob says, "All right, where's all the magic happen? Where's all it, And Lamont said, I don't know what to tell you. This is it." He's like, I get it. You don't want to give away your secrets. And Lamont's like, "I don't know what to tell you, man. We don't have secrets. We use snow chains for this sound. We use a broken drumstick on this for this sound. Like we use everything but the kitchen sink, pretty much."
It's interesting you talk about Lamont Dozier, because he mentioned about the telegraph for "You Keep Me Hanging On."
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about that, because you love the Vanilla Fudge cover of "You Keep Me Hanging On."
Oh yeah,
What are your other favorite? Can you give us 2 of your favorite covers of hits?
Well, "All Along the Watchtower," definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the cover is so good you forget the original.
Right. That yeah.
Well, it's so good that Dylan played it like that after. He
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to play
Wow.
with Hendrix, right? That's the ultimate compliment. And I think that you got to give credit to Beatles for their version of Twist and Shout, because thank God that John Lennon's, that was like the 12th song that he sang that day, because they had to get all those songs done in that like
Right.
finite amount of time, and his voice was shot. So that's why he's just so crazy on that. His voice is just all over the place, and then you got to give credit for a little help from my friends.
Speaking
Rocker.
of,
Rocker. Right. Yeah. Oh, well done. Yeah. Yes.
Paul and I talked one day, and Paul said, "Well, rock and roll is officially dead." And I said, "Really?" And he says, "Yes, Chuck Berry has died."
Yeah.
And I thought,
Yep.
yeah, I guess that puts an end to it, doesn't it? Kind of.
Yeah. I mean, Chuck Berry, I mean, you can argue king of rock and roll. I say they're co-kings. Well, three kings. To me, it's Little Richard and Chuck Berry and Elvis.
Are there new legends that we're enjoying now that will be in the same conversation with the people we've mentioned before here today?
Yeah, I think that
Like Justin Bieber, where do we put Justin Bieber?
Well-
because people tell me the guy's a pretty good
Yeah,
musician.
but there's really there's pre-monkey, post-monkey with Justin Bieber.
K-pop demon hunters.
What? Is that a
yeah.
thing?
What?
Barbara, I just saw that. My kids showed it to me.
I mean, just think that kids are like little kids are
They love
watching,
it.
right?
They love it.
You know what I heard today? Taylor Swift, and she's been here in New York City on television shows and stuff. And I heard from a guy who works at one of the shows. I'll leave the names out of this. And she's engaged with that Travis Kelce, who plays football for the Chiefs. If the Chiefs don't, at least if they don't get back to the Super Bowl,
That's
The
it.
engagement's
That's it.
over?
Right.
the
right,
whole thing,
Right.
the
Right.
whole thing is
She
over.
goes for a
Now,
ride.
you didn't hear it.
She goes for a ride?
She goes for a ride.
Yeah.
You didn't hear this from me, okay?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
But we
I love it.
just did.
What?
That's the problem.
That is the
I
problem.
have it's a general, all your research, all the stuff you know now that you didn't know before. Is there anybody that you were wrong about? Is there anybody you think you owe an apology to, that you had your mind made up?
Yeah, well, I loathed the Carpenters with every fiber of my being as I was growing up. Couldn't stand them. Didn't understand why people enjoyed that music. And then I went through a divorce. It was about 22 years ago. And I listened to Rainy Days and Mondays one day and broke down. And I was like, I get it now. I get it. I understand. Karen Carpenter. And now Karen Carpenter is one of my favorites. So
Unbelievable drummer.
Now, can you verify that? Was she a great drummer, Karen?
Oh yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And I think I might be wrong about Tone Loc. I'm just kidding.
Might be.
I always try to have an open mind with all music. I've listened to Drake. I've listened to Taylor Swift. I open my mind to it and say, there's got to be something here. Even if I don't find it, I try to open my mind to it. So,
And
know.
who was the kid that did the halftime show?
Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick Lamar. Whoa, how about that for a...
That's my son's favorite.
He's a tremendous force.
yeah. My son is a huge Kendrick Lamar fan, my 17-year-old. I like the 1975. Have you ever heard of them?
Don't know him. No.
Yeah, I
You
think
know
you
him,
would
Walter?
like them.
Walter's shaking his head.
Yeah, a couple of people here know of them.
I really like the 1975. I think that Matty Healy, I got a chance to interview him when they were kind of rising up to the top. Their debut album came out. It's one of the best debut albums of the last 30 years for sure.
How about your guy, Warren Zevon, who wrote
Warren.
B-sides for the Turtles?
Yeah,
And that's what he lived off of before he hit.
yeah. And he's going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in about a month.
Yeah, November 8th.
Finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, finally.
Finally, I know.
But and this is nothing new. People characterize him as having that novelty song, that werewolf.
Yeah.
To me, it was just a thoughtful, silly poetic nonsense, but I wouldn't characterize it with monster mash. You know, it's not
No.
really that.
The others
Wow,
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, yeah, that was not his greatest effort, really.
No,
not
no.
even close.
No.
Lawyers, guns, and money is my
Oh yeah.
favorite.
Let's just say that the YouTube thing runs out of its viability. Then where might you present?
The podcast, the radio show, wherever I can tell these stories. You know.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Well,
Yeah.
I really thank you for your time, and thank you for giving me something to do in the evening. I know that doesn't sound right, but
No,
I'm-
it doesn't sound right at all.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm blown away. I somebody had emailed me about 5 months ago and said, "Hey, David Letterman's a fan of your show," and I thought, "Oh, you hear this kind of stuff from people? I'm not sure." And then about a month later, the same guy sent me a podcast link to a show where you were talking about Bob Dylan. And I immediately showed my mom because I said, you know, this would have been Dad's proudest moment of me.
ah,
That because my dad was such a fan, Dave. He
well,
watched it
that's
all the
kind.
time,
That's
and
very
you were his
kind.
favorite. So I think he would have thought that was pretty cool. The Ringo
But
Starr.
you know what triggered that story was watching you talk about Bob Dylan and
like a
Mr.
Rolling Stone.
Yeah, like a Rolling Stone. That's right. And that was the genesis for me retelling it. But the person with the true great version is Paul. All right. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Dave.
Thanks so
All
much.
right. Let's have a good conversation about this
Yeah,
in the comments below.
yeah.
And subscribe to everybody.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya. Thanks so much. Thank you. It's such an honor, you guys. I really appreciate it.